Oh, it's great. It's great. Lee, great to have you on this morning. Thank you so much for being here.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Oh, it's going to be great. So again, the Pipe Podcast, what do we talk about? We talk about sales process, sales initiatives, sales prospecting, and sales experiences. I'm your host, Cruz, and I'm here with Lee Salz, the sales guru. All right, guys, you're in for a great... Yeah, you're sitting right there. Yeah, so you are in for a great show. So happy to have you here, Lee. Hey, just for those that have been living under a rock for the last 20 plus years, for a few decades, all right? And I'm not trying to age you at all. But
I'm feeling old right now after that intro.
Hey, let's talk a little bit about Lee Salz. Let's talk a little bit about sales architects. Hey, just give them that high level. Tell them where you've been and what part of the world you run, Lee.
Sure. So I'm in Minneapolis, but I'm sure my accent gives away. There's no way this guy's from Minnesota. I grew up in New York and New Jersey. Built sales organizations in a number of different industries, and then in 2007 launched Sales Architect. So not quite, not that old. I'm 54. And Cris was right to what you were talking about. We are not a sales training company.
Mm-hmm.
The conversations we have is with executives who say, there's this big opportunity out there and we're not seeing our fair share or even an unfair share.
Right.
What we do is we help them put together the strategy, the process, and the tools to go capture their fair share.
Got it.
And what we're going to be talking about today, I have not shared in any other podcast. I have some new things that are rolling out. You don't even know about them yet.
No, I don't.
The first thing is we're rolling out a new tagline because I've got a new website that'll be going up in a couple of weeks, because this gets to the core of what we do. It's building salespeople into world-class sales forces.
There we go. Building salespeople into world-class sales forces. I love it. So let's talk a little bit about that, because you talk about that in your book, and in sales differentiation. You talk about it in selling different. But let's talk a little bit about both of those, and let's just open up that kimono right now.
Sure. So. And one of the things that's going to be on this new website is a new tool that I've developed called the Sales Organization Maturity Analysis. Now, this isn't measuring how silly you are, but there's expressions that we use synonymously: sales department, sales team, and sales force. But those are not expressions. They represent stages of sales organization maturity. And what that analysis is going to do, it's going to look at 6 components of a sales organization: new client acquisition, account management, sales management, hiring, onboarding, sales compensation, because that's all you got. Right. And so if we break down those 3 components, a sales organization usually starts in an elementary stage, right? With a sales department. I hire a salesperson, it becomes 2. Oh, then it becomes 1 again. Then I get to 3. Now I'm back to 2. There's very little structure. And of course, results are inconsistent. Then over time, certainly with management guidance and direction, it matures into an emerging stage as a sales team. And that's characterized by identifying best practices, communication, sharing. The ultimate goal, the holy grail, is to reach the expert stage, which is the sales force. And it's during that stage that sales organizations are fully optimized and perform at the highest levels. Why? Because it's founded on process.
That's right.
So as sales organizations progress through that maturity spectrum, effectiveness, revenue, and of course, profitability increase.
Boy, this is gold. And
I know this is not a topic you're interested in, so I apologize.
They better be writing this down. That's all. I'm hopeful that someone's recording this. I think we are, but okay,
good.
So there's good stuff. So let's talk about, because hey, look, I know a little bit about you personally as well, right? And if you just look behind you, I see the baseball. I see some of the baseball books. I know that you've been in and around baseball for a while, right?
Yes,
and talk about foundational process. Talk about, making sure that you understand like where the next play is, like what's the move, like if the ball is hit in this location, and into this player, then you need to know where you're going next. How do you apply some of those experiences that you've had? And because we can all use sports analogies for when we talk about like how we compare sports to sales. And I do it often, Lee. I do it often in my business as well. Right.
Yeah.
And so just let's talk a little bit about that, because I'm sure you've made some great connections there too.
I have a few stories to share around that. So I have two sons that play college baseball. Actually, as of yesterday, I have one because my older son graduated from college and finished his baseball career. And I've been coaching baseball since the very beginning, or when they first started. And I coached with squishy ball. So you had the right. And when I was coaching these kids, I found they'd swing the bat like it was a wet noodle, one of these kind of things, almost like they were fishing, get a little wrist action in. And I don't know where this came from, but I had this crazy idea. I picked up the ball and I held it out in my hand and I looked at all the kids and I said, "What is this?" They looked at me like I was nuts. I said, "It's a baseball." I'm like, "No, this is a tomato. And here's what I want you to do. I want you to splatter it all over me." All of a sudden, I started pitching to these kids. Instead of swinging a wet noodle, they were winding up all the way back here, eyes lit up, and couldn't wait to demolish the ball. I didn't do anything but change their mindset. I didn't improve process, but I changed the way they looked at baseball. And that's one of the things that I do with salespeople. We can talk about process and strategy and technique and tactics and all these wonderful things. But the mindset that we have affects our success, just like in that baseball example. I'll give you another one. Let's see. Well, my sons were 8 and 10. They were on the same team, and I had a chance to coach both of them, and that was just wonderful. It was the last time that it happened in their entire baseball career. And my older son got drilled by a fastball, and his younger brother saw it. And now both of them were uncomfortable hitting. They'd get up to the plate, and now they were thinking, "I don't want to get hit. I don't want to get hit." So the pitch would start coming. They were already stepping out of the box.
Right.
So I said, "Okay, here's the deal, boys. Every time you hit the ball, I'm going to give you a pack of baseball cards. I don't care where it goes. Every time you hit the ball," because they were into baseball cards then, "I'll give you a pack of baseball cards." Now they started thinking about, "I want to get a pack of baseball cards."
Right.
They weren't thinking about that. And then I kept raising the bar. Okay, now it's got to be a fair ball. Now it's got to be a base hit. And now we got all the way back to where they were before, but even with a stronger mindset, where they were thinking about the outcome they wanted as opposed to the fear. One of the things, I don't know if you've ever heard this before. I heard this, probably about 30, 40 years ago. Do you know how they train race car drivers?
I'm not familiar. No, I'm not.
So what happens is, of course, you're driving at a very high rate of speed.
Sure.
And you're very close to the wall. So the driver wants to look at the wall to make sure they don't hit it. And they start thinking, "Don't hit the wall, don't hit the wall." Well, the human mind doesn't understand the word "not." So what the instructors do is every time their head goes towards the wall, they turn it back. And so it's the same thing with anything in life. So we were talking baseball. If you think, "Don't strike out, don't strike out," you might as well sit down because you just struck out. Right? You have to think about what you want to accomplish. In sales, you don't want to go into me and say, "Gosh, I don't want to blow this. I don't want to blow this." You just blew it. Sit down. Right? So we have to think about what we want to achieve as opposed to what we're trying to avoid, because the human mind doesn't understand the word "not."
That's just great. And the mindset.
Baseball stories. I gave you baseball stories.
I love it. And the mindset is so important. And you talk about architecting sales success. You talk about all of that too. And you can bring that down foundationally as well. But let's explore that a little bit as well. So, what about, architecting sales success. Well, I mean, you went through that process with us, but what are most companies, Lee, what are they missing? Like when you walk into organizations or you're getting calls and you're unpacking and really understanding their culture and understanding what they're doing and their mindset and how they're growing their organizations, part and parcel. What are you seeing out there?
So why don't we break it down in those three categories I shared earlier? And I'll tell you what we're missing. So in new client acquisition, not having a documented process in a playbook. So we have a bunch of salespeople, and this is one of my favorite conversations. Let's say a CEO has 10 salespeople, and I'll say, if all 10 of your salespeople said, I just had a great discovery meeting, what would you know for sure, for certain, took place in that meeting? Most common answer I get, not a darn thing, because they'd never prescribed the handling of discovery. But they're doing the same stuff to the same marketplace. Why would we leave that to chance? Why would we make that arbitrary? Why would we let that be opinion? We should figure out what the best practices are, turn it into process, teach everyone how to follow it, and hold them accountable for doing so.
Right. Yeah. I mean, you're so right. Because when you go through discovery, I mean, of course, you're asking good questions. You're trying to understand, right. What's the compelling reason for your prospect to want to utilize or purchase your service now or in the very near future, right? Now or in the very near future. Because if they're not compelled to do that, they don't, and the pain to change isn't greater than the pain to stay the same, right? So if they're not compelled to do that, then then it's a suspect, baby. It's not a prospect, right? It's a suspect, not a prospect. So, but then do you, to your point, do you have a documented process on the information that you're trying to gather? What that looks like at the end of the day? How are you determining whether they have enough, enough pain, or their issue is big enough, or their challenge or their frustration is great enough to actually get them to move, right? To get them to move in the sales process.
Right. Exactly. And it's the same concept. You may call them objections, concerns, stalls. I put them in this bucket called deal obstacles. So again, you've got 10 salespeople. The price issue comes up. Why would we let each of those 10 people say, well, this is how I'm going to handle it? That doesn't make sense.
Right.
We should figure out what the right approach is, capture the playbook, teach the team how to do it, and hold them accountable for doing it the way that's been prescribed. It sounds so simple, but very, very few companies have gone to that step to put that in place. And that's something that my firm does in working with organizations.
So we talked a little bit about mindset, and listen, some sales reps, some sales guys, it's like herding cats, man. I mean, it's like getting them to stay focused, to use the playbook, to go through these steps and to, in some way, get them to accept the fact that if they do it this way, they're going to see consistent, the consistent behavior is going to drive consistent results. Right. A lot of sales guys, Lee, they're not built that way. So how do you help with that? Like, what does that look like in your world?
Great question. It's all how you go about building the playbook. So when I work with an organization to do that, I don't sit here in Minneapolis and say, I'm going to look really smart and write this missive and send it over. What I do is I conduct workshops with the team, with those salespeople that you're talking about. And I mine information out of their heads so that there's no surprise when the playbook is produced. They've been involved in the development of the process. So that's how we get instant buy-in, because they're the ones that helped shape it.
That's right.
But if you just put a bunch of people in a boardroom and say, okay, we're just going to write this and we're going to tell the salespeople this is what we're doing, you're not going to get the acceptance.
Oh, you're getting me excited now, because we've been in those situations too. Like, we go into organizations just like you're talking about, and they say, well, Crispin, what should we be doing in this situation? What should we be doing? I go, if I have to develop this if you're expecting me to develop this process if you're expecting me to develop this program, in a vacuum, I'm going to fail. We're going to fail.
Correct.
Right. And so you have to have that collaboration or else you're not going to be able to get that buy-in.
Exactly.
And when you're doing it, I mean, and you've experienced this, 1,000 times, Lee, with all those companies that you've helped to grow. And
good, I'm feeling old again.
No, it's just because it happens so frequently. Not because you've been doing it for so long. All right. But because it happens so frequently and because of your experience, when you go in and let's talk a little bit about culture, because the culture of the organization, I mean, what do you do when you're managing through these types of opportunities and you're going into organizations and you're saying, I think we can help you here, right? I think we've got tools, we've got processes, we've got things that we can do that we can help you with. But then how are you managing to protect the culture of the organization as you're helping them to grow?
You bring up an interesting point, culture. And I'm sure you found the same thing that I have. Sometimes companies say, this is our corporate culture, but there's a separate animal when we're talking about our salespeople.
You're so right.
Fit the rest of the culture. And I have to counsel executives a lot of times around that and say, what you want them to do doesn't fit with the rest of the corporate culture, right? So if you want to hire people in this sales group and have them match the culture, don't be surprised when they don't sell anything.
Right.
It's a very different dynamic. Now, the sales organization develops a culture and a framework that leads to strategy, process, and tools being developed. But when you try to take, you see it every day. Salespeople, they're just wired differently than the rest of the functions in that organization, in that company. And you can't force that fit. It just doesn't work.
So good. It's so good. All right. So let's shift gears for a second because I want to talk about, and I want to go back to your other book, Sell Different. I really do want to dig into that a little bit while we've got time. Are you okay with shifting gears to that?
We can shift gears, or I didn't know if you wanted to finish the thought because you had asked me where there were opportunities being missed and we only talked about one of the 6. Did you want me to finish that?
Let's go.
Okay.
Yep.
So we did new client acquisition. The second one is account management. What a lot of organizations do, account management is we have ABC clients, all based on the amount of revenue that we get. And even though we have this nice, pretty list, we provide account management the same to the C's as the A's, all the same, no strategy behind it. And it's determined based on how nice the client is. The nicer the client, the more we talk with them and visit with them.
Mm-hmm.
So account management, if you think about the what that is, this is an investment that companies make in the relationship they have with their clientele.
Mm-hmm.
It's for the proactive part. It's to provide value above and beyond the product that you're selling.
Great.
And so you need to have an ABC list, but not limited to recognized revenue. And I talk about this as a chapter in Sell Different, all about this, but there are a number of aspects that become considerations before you put them in that ABC ranking.
Mm-hmm.
Then once you put them in an ABC ranking, then you have to say, okay, what is the investment we are interested in making in the relationship for our A's, our B's, and our C's? Because this cost is real dollars involved.
Sure.
Right? And it can't be arbitrary. It can't be just left to the salespeople and say, by the way, you're responsible for account management, which that's usually the end of the conversation as far as what we're going to do. Well, you're responsible for bringing in the client and also providing account management. That's it. So account management is about retaining, growing, and acquiring clients. Now, wait a minute. You just said it, acquiring clients. Yes, I did. Because if you put together a really strong account management program, that helps you acquire new clients because you're talking about it during the new client acquisition stage. You talk about the value that you're providing above and beyond the value they receive from what you're selling.
Yep, that's right.
The third one, so we talk about new client acquisition, account management, sales management. So what we're missing there not having a system to bring out the best in our salespeople. So I find, and I'm amazed that this still happens, that there aren't regular meetings with set agendas, set structures with the salespeople with some defined frequency.
Yep.
Most of it's haphazard. We get together when there's something to talk about, like I'm working on a deal or I'm not performing. So something there, as opposed to having set periodic meetings with a structure and putting together outcomes, desired outcomes from that meeting to achieve in the next period of time before the next meeting.
Great.
So that's the third one that's missing in sales management. Hiring. There's a lot to unpack there. First one is, and I'm sure you see this too, when do sales leaders look for sales talent? When there's an opening on the team.
That's right. When they lose, but they've already lost somebody. Yep.
Correct. And that's like going to the supermarket when you're hungry. That's how the Mint Milanos end up in your shopping cart with the Oreos. Right?
That's right.
You make bad decisions, just like you do when you're hiring salespeople, because every day that seat is left open, you're missing revenue opportunities. So we just make poor decisions. So number one, we're not constantly keeping a talent pipeline. We say salespeople have to have a prospect pipeline. Sales leaders have to keep a talent pipeline so that when those opportunities come up where we need to add someone, we already have something in the works. Second one is that also in hiring is we look for great salespeople. And I'm a believer that there's no such thing as a great salesperson. And people love to take me to task on that. Well, that's these sales. I'm like, how many of these so-called great salespeople, I mean, great track record, polished look, great closers, great prospectors have you hired that failed in your company? And of course, they have countless stories of that.
Sure.
So if you believe in great salespeople, you have to also sign up for one of two of the following, given their failure. This person either showed up on your doorstep and completely forgot how to sell, or your company is the absolute worst company to sell for in the history of business. Which is it? Right. So the issue is the word great. Great isn't a standalone quality, but rather an attribute of the relationship between that salesperson and a specific sales role. So what we should be looking for are the right salespeople with the potential to be great in this specific role. Because each sales role, it's like a fingerprint, right? When you look at all the clients you work with, you can't take salespeople and just move them around like chess pieces, right? There's a specific set of knowledge and skills that are required to be successful in that role. And if they don't possess them, they fail.
Yep. And how important is it, Lee, to make sure that you've identified that role like from A to Z? Like because that's another piece where when you're talking about hiring, we talk about making sure that we call them KBIs, not KPIs. We call them key behavioral indicators instead of key performance, right? If you behave in this way, then here's where we're expecting you to be from a production standpoint. This is what your compensation plan then will look like. And making sure that those are crystal clear, when somebody comes into the organization. Like it's in no mutual mystification when it comes to, when it comes to the role that, these individuals are going to play for the company.
Exactly. So in my book, Hire Right, Higher Profits, I introduced the concept of performance factors. So before we're going to talk about interviewing candidates, we need to take a 360-degree look, just like you're talking about the role, and identify the factors that lead to success, failure, or underperformance. And then what happens is you put together this performance factor portfolio, and we're not looking for a great salesperson. We're not looking for a thumbs up. For each of these performance factors, we need to evaluate the candidates for a match or lack thereof.
Right.
And then with some of those performance factors, if you say, we're not willing to teach it, and it's highly impactful in their success, if the candidate doesn't have it, that becomes a deal breaker. They're out.
Good. It's just good. Good stuff. All right. So I'll let you keep going.
All right. So that's hiring. Onboarding. The output of a hiring process is not a great salesperson. It's someone with the potential to be great. And too many salespeople have this, sales leaders have this perspective that I hire great salespeople, put feet up on the desk and dollars just rolling. That doesn't happen.
That's right.
That potential is only recognized when a structured sales onboarding program is in place. And the idea is to reduce the time to production and make sure that they can sell the full suite of products and services that your company represents. And for some reason, someone came out, and I don't know where this came from, that onboarding is 90 days. It's not. It's a function of the expectations that you have of someone who is proficient in the role. So the question I'll ask executives is, imagine you have a salesperson who has successfully completed your sales onboarding program. Well, there's no expectations of this individual because you just said they successfully completed onboarding. Well, what are those expectations? What is it you expect them to know, be able to do, be able to use on behalf of the company? So know is information like product knowledge, competitive landscape. Do is an action like conduct a discovery meeting, deliver a corporate presentation. Use refers to systems or tools like your CRM. Everybody talks about the CRM, how salespeople don't use it. And one of the common reasons is during onboarding, we don't teach it well enough so that they do follow it and use it properly.
That's right. That's right. And make sure that even the CRM information, you talk about that playbook, like
yes.
Even the information for the CRM, like how do you navigate it? Why is that drop down there? Like, what's the purpose of it? And then what's the definition of all of that? Like, you're so right, Lee. I mean, that stuff is just so vitally important.
And so once we identify those expectations, the questions that we have to ask, or as we put together the onboarding experience, is how will we know if this expectation has been met? And so one of the missing pieces I find is we treat it as new hire training. So information going in one direction, give them stuff to read, videos to watch, go right along with this salesperson, but we don't do any assessment. A quiz, an exam, a simulation, mock sales calls to see if they can perform in this setting before we let them go out and represent our brand. So when I see it, I'm sure you see this as well. We just give them a bunch of training and we don't see whether or not it's stuck. And we just say, well, go have at it. And then 6 months later, when they're not performing, we're putting them on a PIP and ushering them out the door.
That's right.
For issues we should have known in their first 30 days if we were assessing it.
Yeah. Yeah. That's so right.
And then last but not least is compensation. We pay salespeople above and beyond their salary for one reason. And that's to drive the activities and behaviors we want that lead to revenue. That's it.
Yeah.
Right. And we can yell and scream about results. Nothing we can do about that. But there's a lot we can do about the activities and behaviors that lead to it. And too often I see with compensation, I'll see a salesperson being given a straight salary. That's called a banker. It's not a salesperson.
That's right. That's
or
right.
A linear compensation. You get 5% of everything you bring in. Guess what? They have no ownership of a quota or a goal because you gave them a flat percentage. And then nothing in place to drive the activities and behaviors that you want.
Yep.
So a long answer to your question, but it ties into those 6 components of a sales organization that we look at from a maturity perspective.
Yeah, I'll add one piece to that. And you've probably seen this as well. It's called an incentive plan for a reason. It's supposed to incentivize those sales reps to perform at a high level. So Lee, we walk in, and you've probably done this too. You've walked into an organization and you're like, you're looking at the comp plan and you're saying, okay, so this is the compensation plan, right? For the sales reps. And you said, let me grab my calculator and let me call, my accountant. So then we can try and figure out exactly how the commissions are
You need
going
a
to
degree in accounting you need a degree in accounting to understand how you get paid.
Right?
Too complex.
I mean, some of the most incredible, compensation plans that I've helped to build, and you probably have done this too, is now I own every one of these gray hairs. Okay. So I've been around the conference table, I've pushed the the contract over, 3 copies here, Lee, press hard, right? The third copy is going to be yours. So I've had those types of events in my life, right?
Yeah.
But if I can't leave that office and as I'm walking out the door, I can't calculate my commission, then I'm telling you, there may be something wrong with your compensation plan. There may be something wrong with your incentive plan. Right.
Yep.
Because, and I know it's hard to get down to that, especially when you're looking at margin and product and different product sets and types. And now you add in big data and all of that. Right. And so, especially for some SaaS companies, even though we know that's pennies on the dollar. Okay. So, but at the end of the day, yeah, I mean, why aren't they, Lee, in your opinion, why do they have to make them so complex? Why?
That's what happens when finance gets overly involved in the shaping of compensation. There's a 3-legged stool. I call it the sales equilateral triangle for sales compensation. Equilateral triangle means each side needs to be in proportion. And the 3 sides are the company, the salesperson, and the client. If any of those sides are under or overserved, the law of unintended consequences takes over. So what you're describing in that situation is the company is very happy because they put all of these fences around sales compensation. Salesperson, not happy. And as a result, maybe the client's not happy either. So you have a compensation issue and you have to go back and retool it.
So good. It's so good. I mean, I just love it. I love everything you're talking about today.
Well, thank you.
Love the process piece. You've obviously been around this for a long time and you've seen all of these situations in different companies. And that's the beauty of having someone like you come into their organization and really help them figure this stuff out, which is great. Okay. What are we missing? This is kind of the time that we start to move into the Sales Arbiter 7, but what am I missing? Is there anything else that you feel like the listeners and viewers need to hear from you before we go into a little bit of the fun part of what we do?
Sure. So the one thing we haven't really talked about is the remedy, right? So we talked about issues there. And there's 3 steps to going through each of those 6 components to address the issues that we've talked about. The first is to identify the best practices in hiring, managing, onboarding, and then institutionalize that as process. So that would be step 2. And the third is to put together an accountability culture. So these things that you said, we're going to make this a process. Process only works if folks are being held accountable for executing on it.
It's great. It's great, Lee. It's awesome. Well, listen, that's been good stuff. I'm sure whoever's listening out there and whoever's watching today, they're getting a bunch of information from us and really, and I'm hoping that this is rattling upstairs, the 6 inches between their ears, and they're thinking about how maybe they can do things a little different and get out of their comfort zone, right? Make some changes and get out of their comfort zone and get a hold of you when they need you. All right.
Right.
So then, let's jump into with your permission, we'll jump into the Sales Arbiter 7.
Okay, fire away.
And this is something that I stole from my friend James Lipton, who was, it was on Inside the Actor Studio. And he, at the end of every interview, he would ask, some questions just so the audience would get to know, the guest a little bit better and maybe a little bit more personally. So I'd just like to jump right into this. So Lee, what's your favorite word? What's your favorite?
I'll bet you could guess it based on the conversation we've had today. It's consistency. I get irritated when I have inconsistent experiences. Something like if I go to a restaurant and I order blue cheese and one time I go in, they don't charge for it. The next time it's $1.50. It's not about the $1.50. It's like, be consistent. If it's $1.50, it's always $1.50.
Right.
So
I love
consistency is my favorite word.
Yeah, that's good. That is good. What's your least favorite word?
Cannot.
Tell them why.
So I believe if you have the right mindset, you can achieve anything.
That's it. Mindset. It's so important. What's something that could make your day?
So I'll give you that to you in 2 sides, business and personal. The business side is client achievement. When they've worked with me and I'm seeing these things kick in and they're like, wow, this is really working. I'm on such a high.
Yeah.
On a personal level, I've got 3 kids, a daughter and 2 sons. Their successes, when I hear about the successes they're having, again, I'm on such a high.
Right. That's great. That's great. And you're with your son graduating, you're turning over a new page there too, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure he's going to follow in the parents' footsteps as well. So that's great. Good stuff. What's something that could ruin your day?
Well, we didn't talk about this. I don't know if you know about my hobby, but I compete in powerlifting. I compete in the bench press. And a bad bench press day ruins my entire day. Like Saturday, I had a bad day on the bench and just irritated me all day.
There it is. There's a picture of it there too. That's good. Good stuff. Okay. What's a sound or noise that you love?
And you're going to agree with me on this. The crack of the bat when my son hits a home run. The sound that has, and you just know it's gone.
Yeah, you're right. You're so right. Oh, I just love it. I just love it. And you don't even have to be watching. Like you can just listen, you can just listen for it. So good. What's a sound or noise that you hate?
Vacuum cleaner. Hate it. I had fun with my wife the other day. We have one of those Roombas. And she was cleaning it out. I said, you know what you are? She's like, what? I said, you're a vacuum cleaner.
Oh my gosh. That's so good. That's so good. But hey, Lee, it doesn't work. Hey, if this whole thing, doesn't work, we could take it on the road. All right. What profession other than your own would you have liked to attempt?
Well, if I was 35 years younger, it'd be playing center field for the Yankees.
That's it?
That's it.
I knew it was going to come back to baseball. I always knew it was going to come back to baseball. That's right. That's great. All right, Lee, listen, how do they get in touch with you? How do you, what's the best way for them to reach out to you with your wealth of knowledge and the times that you've helped organizations, grow and succeed and grow their culture, and really make things happen? What's the best way?
You go to my website, which is salesarchitects.com. So there's an S on that, plural, salesarchitects.com. On all the social media platforms, you can look me up, LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter. I'm even on TikTok. You know why I'm on TikTok?
Tell me why.
That's what the younger generation is. And I don't want to become a dinosaur. So I have videos on TikTok so that the younger people, as they're coming out of school, entering the sales profession, they say, oh, I know who Lee Salz is.
That's
and guess
great.
what? You can also do this thing the dinosaurs used to use. Pick up the phone.
No.
You can call me 763-416-4321.
Give it to them one more time, Lee. One more time.
763-416-4321.
4321. Well, listen, it has been great having you on today.
Oh, it's been fun. Thank you.
I really appreciate you being here. And we had some people in the box that were making comments and rolling along with us. And so I always close everyone like this and just, Lee, thanks again, but keep selling and have fun doing it. Thank you so much, folks.
Thank you.